Well, good Sunday morning, everybody. America, it can be defined by its symbols and its sayings, blue jeans, apple pie, even the dreams that we chase. But what makes an American an American? At the Supreme Court this month, that very question on trial. At issue, Trump versus Barbara, the case challenging President Trump's executive order that would end birthright citizenship. The Supreme Court taking up oral arguments on the first day of April. President Trump even making an appearance to hear the debate himself captured in court sketches. The debate ignited after the president signed his executive order on his first day of office in his second term. Central to the case is the interpretation of a key provision of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. The amendment stating that all persons born or naturalized in the U.S. and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens. The Trump administration argues birthright citizenship should not be automatically extended to children of parents who are not U.S. citizens or permanent citizens. But every federal court that has considered the case so far has rejected that challenge. And from the start of the 2 hours of oral arguments, justices appearing wary of the government's position. Many questions exemplified this one, in which Chief Justice Roberts cast doubt on the alternate view presented and the implications it would have for the 14th Amendment's birthright citizenship guarantee. But in response, Solicitor General John Sauer defended the government's theory, looking to history and arguing the amendment should be interpreted to require the parent's allegiance and connection to the United States. He said under that reading, unauthorized immigrants and temporary visa holders should not fall within the 14th Amendment's citizenship guarantee. ACLU National Director Cecilia Wang, the lawyer for the plaintiffs in the case, presented a straightforward argument to the justices, emphasizing the widely accepted and long-held view that anyone born in the United States is a citizen guaranteed in the 14th Amendment. A decision by the justices is expected in late summer. And that's where we began this morning's discussion. Forming our panel this week are two legal experts. We have local attorneys Nelly Vielma and Carlos Guerra. They're joined by KGNS General Manager Luis Villarreal. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. So I want to ask just a straightforward question. Is there room in the 14th Amendment to make any changes?
I don't think so. I think that it is not subject to interpretation that the Supreme Court will change. That will be the only way that the Supreme Court can change it. And as you put the amendment there, it's very clear. There's nothing subject to an interpretation. So I think it's going to be very hard for them to change it.
So why do you think they're trying to change it? Or why do you think that they feel that there's room for interpretation?
Well, I think the practical effect that this is having is that it's causing people to doubt whether or not they can actually come here and have a child here. You know, if somebody is from another country and they're considering coming to this country and having a child so that child can have citizenship, it's casting doubt. And at the very least, that's one of the practical effects. However, I don't think that there's a chance that the 14th Amendment is going to change. I don't think that this executive order is going to have any effect. It's about a 95% chance on Polymarket and all these other markets that they have that it's not going to. Kashi as well, yes. But that might not be what they're looking for. There's an equal statute that mimics the language of the 14th Amendment that the justices might decide to rule on, and that would have the effect of nullifying the executive order without saying anything about the Constitution, which would mean that they're punting it to Congress.
All right, so I'm not an attorney here, obviously, and I don't even play one on television. But I think that we get very deep into all of the legalities or legalisms of what we're talking about in the amendments and not. But at the heart of this, and I'm not going to put words in President Trump's mouth because I don't even want to go there, but has there not been abuse to that amendment? Have people not taken advantage over the years of that amendment? In the sense that, listen, we have great social programs in this country. We've got great opportunities. People want to come here and want to be afforded the ability to get those benefits and to have those opportunities, those dreams, as you said it. And so if I am from a different country and I know, listen, I just need to get there, and if I can have a child there, my child will have all those opportunities. Is there not, has that not been abused over the years?
I think that's the fabric of America. We're a land of immigrants, and that has been how the country was founded. So it will be, disingenuous to think that we can just cut that off and say, from here on, whoever else, you're not American. I understand what you're saying regarding welfare and benefits like that, but I think in this case, even their own, one of the comments was that their allegiance to the jurisdiction of the country, right? So what they were talking about is that the people that will not qualify is if the mother doesn't have papers, right, or they came with a tourist visa, but they will qualify if the father is a U.S. citizen or a legal permanent resident. So that's also, I think, they're contradicting themselves, because a legal permanent resident cannot vote, and they were saying if they're, involved politically, which they cannot vote. So
Right.
that's one other minor thing there. And it will be difficult for them to change that. I understand the economics of it, and perhaps, that's the main driver of this change. But it is, it's precedent that once you start going that way and you open up this kind of worms, then what's going to stop, another executive order from trying to change more, parts of the Constitution?
And again, that you're talking about from a legal standpoint, right? And I get that. But I think I may be naive about this, but I am looking at it from a standpoint of the economics of it, the financial burden on this country. Listen, without naming names, because I promised I wouldn't, but there are a lot of people that don't even live in this country that are getting benefits from our social services because they were born here, because they were deliberately they were brought, but they weren't brought by their parents, but their parents came here with
Right.
the specific goal of having them be born here to have an opportunity, but then left.
Right.
And I don't know whether I can quantify the amount of money that goes out the window that
They're
way.
calling it birth tourism.
But it is significant. And so we sit here and argue about, raising taxes and cutting costs and all that stuff. And if we only, in this case and in others, looked at the abuse of some of these services, I think we would be having very different discussions, because all these services are good. We need them. There are people that need all these services, but they get abused so much. And this is, in my view, this is one of those ways in which they get abused.
Well, to your point, that this is rewarding illegal activity.
Correct.
Right? We have laws in this country. We say that you're not allowed to come here illegally, and but here's the Constitution. The way that people are interpreting it, they're saying that if you come in illegally and you have a child, then that child is a citizen.
And then that child can bring you,
Right.
can petition for your own immigration, right?
Exactly. And I mean, it takes a long time to do
It
that.
does.
The 14th Amendment was established to grant citizenship to slaves. And the slave owners and did not want the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment was something that was created for people that had jurisdiction, that were subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And that's the text that is being talked about here. And the argument that the government is making is that immigration laws were not a thing before.
Correct.
And they are a thing now. And therefore, the interpretation of this is different than it was when it was first enacted.
Got it. So their frame is from many, many, many years ago, and they're trying to frame it now. That's what the argument is. That's what they're looking at. Nelly, you're an immigration attorney. Let's talk a little bit about what this would mean for the clients that you represent. I mean, what are they? Is there any implications for anybody now if something like this were to pass?
Yes, there will be many implications, but I think going to the point of the jurisdiction, they're already subject to the jurisdiction of the U.S. You know, they get arrested, they get detained. If they want to get married, get divorced, they have to be subject to the jurisdiction of the courts of the U.S. So as far as that, there's also another, you know, I mean, they're taxed, they're prosecuted. So the implications, of course, will be, as Carlos was saying, to stop the tourism, the visa tourism of coming to have a child here for what Luis was mentioning, right, to get the benefits down the line. So yes, there's going to be restrictions, but I think that there can also be other restrictions as to the way that the Social Security, you know, is done. Maybe they can change that by statute, like, okay, you require so much time living here, just like they change on the quotas and things like that, make it more conditional upon that. So of course, that's going to be, I guess the subject to the jurisdiction is one of the biggest points that's they cannot overcome in that argument, because they're already subject to the jurisdiction as well.
Wow. So I guess, is there a chance that this could pass? I mean, they're saying that they're going to make a decision at the beginning of summer, around that time. I mean, how do you think the arguments, we know that the arguments at the Supreme Court seemed as they were more favorable to not changing anything, but they still needed some time to think about it.
Well, I think, and again, disclaimer, not from the legal standpoint, but I think at the very least what this does, as you said, Carlos, I think earlier, is it opens the discussion. Okay, maybe this is not the way to go about it, but there are things that need to be looked at. And so, no, Mr. President, your executive order does not work. You've got to, we've got to look at it in a different way. And I guess that's what I hope it accomplishes.
To address the economics part
of it. Right. You know, without, I mean, every time you start talking about immigration, we get very passionate about it because, you know, particularly in this part of the world, because, you know, that is our reality, right? But I think that because of that, we lose opportunities to look at it objectively and say, okay, no, I mean, this is not racist. This is not about voting or about politics. It's about a real economic drain on our system that needs to be looked at. That's how I look at it. If I were betting or I was going to go and cashier one of those things, I would say no. The Supreme Court is going to reject the. I don't think they will allow the executive order to stand. But that's my take. And again, probably the least qualified person to say that here.
We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we are just getting started. Our panel stays with us to continue the conversation. Stay with us. Welcome back, everyone. We are continuing the conversation where we left off. Just want to thank once again our legal panel. We've got Carlos Guerra with us, Nelly Bielma, two local attorneys here in the community. So we're talking about birthright citizenship. And Nelly, before we took a break, you wanted to talk a little bit about Justice Roberts and where he was leading when he made a few comments.
Yes, I think that for the most part, the Supreme Court is very conservative and they try to continue with the precedent. The last case that they had was 125 years ago for a Chinese national whose child was born here, and this is the precedent that we have. And so it's very similar to what we're seeing right now. You know, it's somebody that came from another country, and it will be hard, I think, for them to change that. And they want the constitutional stability. They don't want the Constitution, our core values to change. So I think that it's going to be very difficult for it to be a change, and it will have to be like change of the interpretation of the Constitution, which that section that you mentioned, that amendment, I don't think there's anywhere there that is subject to interpretation. It's very clear. So I think, and I'm with you, that it's going to be a no.
We're taking a poll here.
We're taking a poll here.
You mentioned precedent, and there's also the word, that parent that they ask, the government is asking the Supreme Court to read into the 14th Amendment, because they're talking about the jurisdiction. The jurisdiction of whom, right? Is it the parent or is it the child? So if the parent is a foreign national,
Correct.
they might not be subject to the jurisdiction thereof if they're planning on leaving or they leave. But what about the child? And I think that was one of the points that was made by the justices.
I don't know if this is a legal question or not, but I just thought about it because it was one of those things that I've always believed to be true. But if you're born on an airplane, I've always been told that you have the citizenship of the country where the flight
Is
originating from.
Oh, originating, not over.
Well, I don't know. Do you guys have any knowledge of that, or are we just gonna try and make this up? Because
I mean, I think if that happened, it'd probably go to the Supreme Court.
it's like, okay, so where was this child born, or
And
what?
those are some of the questions on stateless, children. If this comes to pass, then where's the kid's nationality going to be?
Well, I mean, if we talk about practical matters, if you are born of Mexican parents, you are a Mexican citizen, regardless of where you're born. That's just what it is in Mexico. I mean, your parents dictate your citizenship on top of where you're born. I don't know if that changes anything here. That's just Mexico. I don't know anywhere else if it's the same anywhere else in the world. I mean, if your parents are Chinese and you are born here, there's a lot of people with dual citizenship because of those things, right? That have the advantage or the reality that because their parents are from a particular country, they have the ability to choose at one point where they want to be or maintain or keep or whatever it's allowed.
Wow.
But, so I don't know that you'd be stateless because you still have the citizenship from where your parents are, I guess. I don't know. That's not.
To do the procedure.
One nice development about this is that we're seeing that the justices are not split necessarily
Among party lines?
Among party lines, yes. This is definitely a majority, what people would say conservative justices, but really they split themselves among different lines. And I think one of those that was termed by Antonin Scalia is textualists, right? You have textualists, purposivists, and intentionalists, and it's basically how you read the statutes and the Constitution. And right here, you're seeing that they're not splitting among party lines. If they're saying, for example, the parents the government is asking the SCOTUS to read parents into the 14th Amendment, it's not there. So textualists, will say
There's nothing there.
There's nothing there. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so it is it's an uphill, depending on which side you're looking at. It's an uphill battle or a slam dunk.
Yeah. What do you think they're doing right now between the arguments and when they plan on making a decision?
They go out, have a drink, and discuss it among themselves.
Like what kind of are they sitting around and just or getting input from different people? I mean, don't you think it's just black and white? Going back to what you said, they're textualists, I mean, how are they seeing it? They have to get input from people, or I don't get what takes so long on something
Why
that
does it have to
seems
wait
so
until-
cut and dry.
Because you're going to see the decision very well supported by law or precedent. So I think, and I used to work for the Fourth Court of Appeals when I was in law school. They're having all their clerks doing a lot of research and also themselves, so that they can support. When you read a decision of this magnitude that is going to impact the whole country, the decision is going to be long. It's going to be at least 30 or 50 pages. So it has to be very well founded in law, in research, in case law. So that's probably what they're doing right now.
So is it similar to what happens in Congress where the staffers are the ones that are actually moving everything? And so this is about the clerks?
Well, but of course, guided by your boss, right? So each of them has their team, and they're
Right.
going one line. They're also doing research, and they're like, okay, look for something else that supports what I want to go with.
Sure.
Do you think it'll go back to Congress to make a decision?
I mean, I think that's going to be the decision that we're actually going to look for. Like we were talking about earlier, the 14th Amendment is pretty clear. I don't think they're going to rule on that. Well, I mean, they might just rule on that, and they might make this a permanent ruling. But if they rule on the statute, then they're punting it to Congress. And I think that would be a win for the government. I think that might be what they're looking for.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
I hadn't
And then
looked
the
at it that way.
implementation, because now it's like, okay,
How
how
do
to
you-
check the
how do you
documents
check?
of the parents and make sure they're valid.
Yeah,
Gee. Right.
absolutely.
You know, but not just because it's hard to enforce doesn't mean we don't need to look at it. I mean, I understand it. I just, you know, again, I think there is a way to look at it that, regardless of your political spectrum, I think we need to look at it from a practical standpoint and say, okay, is there something here, you know, and could this be of a benefit? Because there are like this situation, there are many other situations where abuse is prevalent, and I firmly believe that if we didn't have those abuses, we wouldn't have as many problems as we do with regards to funding these programs and things of that nature. So
Yeah.
that's just me.
If you had to guess, do you think there'll be any dissenting votes?
Oh, I don't
on
think it's
the
going to be a
Supreme Court?
unanimous thing.
You don't think so?
I mean, I think it's going to be Justice Thomas and Justice Alito. They made it clear during, well, I mean, I say they made it clear, but I think during the arguments they did seem to be leaning towards the government.
The government and
Really?
So it might be a 7-2 decision, maybe possibly a 6-3 decision with maybe some concurring
again,
justices.
disclaiming my ignorance, has there ever been a unanimous decision by the Supreme Court?
No, I think that's very odd.
Okay, I was just checking to see if there was ever a case
No
where like
alphas
that.
there.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
Is there I was going to say, anything you think that the American people need to know about this? Or just, you know, let's see what the deciding factors are when it comes to birthright citizenship.
I mean, I think it's going to be, don't panic. You know, I think this is going to be something that will be,
And whatever it is, it won't be retroactive, right?
I mean,
You're asking for a friend.
I'm asking for a friend.
So are they here already?
Okay. Thank you all so much. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, it's the one thing we can't stop thinking about. Stay with us. Well, it's the one thing our panelists cannot stop thinking about. We're going to start with Carlos.
yeah, so Law Day is right around the corner. As you know, I'm president of the Laredo Bar Association. We're going to be having it on May 1st, and we're going to be honoring several individuals. The Law Day chair is going to be Judge Monica Knotson. The Liberty Bell Award is going to be Alyssa Cigarroa, and we are still selecting the Spirit of Excellence. So if you're an attorney and you are a member of the Laredo Bar, make sure to vote.
Okay, and how do they vote? Do they know that?
Yes, we send out an email, and you can always go to our website, laredobarassociation.com.
Okay, perfect. Good selections there. And Nellie, you've got a one thing also.
Yes, well, for me, it's my family. I'm always, you know, thinking about them and their changes in life. And this year in particular, we have our senior, John Paul, and we have an 8th grader also graduating from middle school, Matthew. So I just hope and pray that they make the right decisions as to what they're going to do for their future, for their college, and just, you know, praying for them.
Both of them are in transitional years.
Yes,
Yeah,
very
8th
important
grade, a
years.
freshman, and senior to college.
Yes.
Wow, well, good luck to them.
you.
Well, we're joining in on our
Yes.
one thing, so take it away, Luis.
No, you do it.
No, you
Well,
do it.
obviously, Richard Burler Heatwave, as everybody knows him, received the key to the city earlier this week by Mayor Trevino and City Council, and a very proud moment. Heatwave has been with us here at KGNS and serving Laredo for 45 years. So it was a great honor. We were glad to be here, be there to support
Yeah, we
Heatwave.
were his big cheerleader. So he actually started with KGNS on February 14th, Valentine's Day of 1980.
Yeah.
So quite a bit of time, but you know, we love our heater. So
Yeah.
congratulations to Heatwave. Well, that's all the time we have, but make sure to tune in next Sunday for another episode of Beyond the Headlines. Have a good week ahead.